Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this month's webinar from MyAdvice. My name's Chad Erickson, and I'm the Vice President of Strategy here at MyAdvice. I've met many of you and have hosted many of these webinars, and I thank you for taking the time to be here with us today as well. Before I introduce our guest today, let me just set
Hey, Chad, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that technical difficulty. How's that?
There we go. Yeah, you might want to start that over again.
I'll start over again, everybody. I'm sorry. We do all these system checks. We were on 15 minutes early, and moving something around, I accidentally clicked the wrong part on my microphone, so I apologize. So starting fresh, welcome to the webinar, everyone. My name's Chad Erickson, and I am the Vice President of Strategy at MyAdvice. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you into our webinar today. Before I introduce our guest, let me just kind of talk about our format and a couple little things we have going on. So if you are familiar with GoToWebinar, then you'll know the control panel and what to do. If you're not, please just know that we are recording this webinar, so you'll be able to access it later. It'll be on our YouTube page within usually the next 24 to 48 hours at the very, very latest. And also, if throughout our webinar today you have any questions, please ask those on the control panel. I'll moderate those. And while sometimes we wait till the end, today is a very appropriate opportunity to interject those questions during. We want to make sure that if there's any questions or comments or thoughts you had or something that's been bugging you about our topic today, that you ask it right away. So anyway, please do that. But again, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. And we trust that the information that you're going to hear today is going to be valuable for you and help you within your business. Because it's one of those things that we don't always think about. Sometimes we're like, I got other things to worry about. But what we're talking about today is really how to get paid from your patients and understand it can be easier than you think. That's our topic. And our guest today is Michael Gutlove. And for the past 25 years, Michael has been helping business owners really get paid. He created ERJ Solutions and focuses on honest merchant services that take the pain out of getting paid. I've been a business owner for many years, and I have felt that pain. ERJ Solutions was created really to give merchants like you and me a single point of contact. So when you're managing their credit card processing, it can be easier. And so as it relates to whether you're in the medical or dental industries, ERJ Solutions really offers additional operational efficiencies to enable integration with underlying EMR and practice management software systems. And this is really going to facilitate the automatic posting of payments into your accounts and really improve all of your balances. So if you're looking sometimes and wondering why your AR is getting high, what the heck's going on? How do I control this? How do I make my life easier? How do I get my money? Well, this is absolutely the message for you. So with that, Michael and I are gonna have a good discussion today. He's gonna really share some strong insights with you that I'm excited for. And so with that, Michael, take it away. We can talk about some of the goals we have today and a little bit of what you hope to accomplish.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Chad, and thank you very much to the MyAdvice team. They're really looking forward to taking everybody's focus towards something which, believe it or not, is probably the most important thing that any business owner can possibly do, and that is to make sure that they're getting paid, that they're actually putting money into the bank. But because we're so busy, because we're so focused on all of the things that come with running our practice, come with running our business, sometimes this ends up being the last thing that we end up doing. So I think really today's goal really is twofold. Number one, let's just talk about some of the things which maybe we don't talk about enough, which is what am I doing in order to get paid? And also, I would be remiss if I didn't point out the irony. Today is tax day. People, we're all thinking about all the money that we have to pay to the government or that we have to put together, in order to make sure that we're hitting all the deadlines that we need to do. So wouldn't it be nice to now maybe come away today with a few suggestions on how some money can be coming back to us from our patients, maybe in an easier way, a more efficient way. And I'm hopeful that we're able to, in the course of this discussion, uncover a few things that maybe just make a little bit more sense, or intuitively, once you hear it, you're like, that's something that we could do, and it really wouldn't be such a hard lift to do so.
Excellent.
Yeah, how does that sound?
I think that's great. I, before we talked today, we were talking about some of the pains that go into this, and I'll just share very openly. We've had a processor, and I'm not going to mention the name, but we've had a processor for a number of years, and it's been a pain. And Michael and I were already working on a partnership here in other ways, and I started to talk to him like, boy, I should really have you talk to our controller. And after a brief conversation, I was like, hey, I actually think you can help us. And so that just added more to it of what I feel like, Michael, your message is today, and really how to maximize the money, because we're a good sized company. We feel like we've got good controls. It's something we pay attention to. And yet by just pausing for a few minutes, we realized actually we can be doing better. So
Right.
I think that's awesome. So I guess let's start with some of the challenges to getting paid, and then we'll kind of get into some of those other details a little bit. But what are some of the challenges? You've worked with a lot of medical dental practices. What do you hear often that really hurts them?
So what I've noticed is that the medical industry, the dental industry, primarily takes a number of years in order for a doctor to get to the point, for a dentist to get to the point where they're now, quote unquote, calling the shots. Either they're at the partner level in a practice, they own their own practice, they've gone through so much school, they've gone through so many different challenges just to get to that point, and they're experts in the fields of dentistry. They're experts in the fields of cosmetic medicine or whatever specialty that they've gone through. But what they aren't experts in is they aren't experts in finance. They aren't experts in bookkeeping. Most business owners, they're going to have a CPA, they're going to have a bookkeeper, they're going to have someone else that's looking on the finances. Now, I've come across a number of practices where the doctors and the owners are involved. They certainly have an eye, they have a pulse as far as what's going on, but their role within the organization is not to check regularly on the outstanding AR. Their role is not to check which patients have made payments and which patients haven't. Their role is to be the face, in most cases, of the practice. They're the ones doing the procedure. So if we're going to talk about a challenge, I think the first challenge is the division of labor is set up in these businesses that the specialist is not a specialist in the finance area. A lot of practices that I come across, they have, in-house staff. Maybe they have people who are working up front. They're working either, on the back end in billing, or they're going to have that third party. So number one, just acknowledging the fact that as many hats as we think that we wear, the hat that the doctor wears is typically not the finance hat. And therefore, there's that need for that finance professional, that payment professional, to be able to add some insight. I think the second piece, which I think is really intuitive when it comes to the medical practice, is if you think of when the last time you went to a dentist, or throughout the course of a year, a dentist is going to want to take an X-ray. They're going to want to see the inside of the mouth. They're going to want to see what maybe isn't so obvious to the naked eye. If someone's going to the orthopedist, they want to take an X-ray of their wrist, of their knee. Where does it hurt? Let me get to the root of what's actually going on. Most of the time, when we as business owners look at our business, we sometimes just look at our bank account and we say, oh, I think I'm doing okay because I'm in the red, I'm in the black, I'm not in the red. That's not necessarily a true account as far as what's actually happening in the business. And because of the fact that we maybe take these limited glances, or we're not looking at the X-ray, we're not looking underneath as far as what the nuts and bolts look like, we have sometimes somewhat of a warped a view of the practice. So if we're going to kind of get into that second challenge, it's that we're not looking at it with the right lens on. We're not looking at it maybe as in depth as we should be. And the last point, which I think we'll kind of get to, is that a lot of business owners tend to accept that if I'm busy, then I'm profitable. And we're so busy these days, right? How many notifications do we get? How many different things do we have to do? Like our to-do lists are somewhat, never ending. And that creates somewhat of an illusion of efficiency. If I'm busy, well, then I must be doing things well, or I just can't catch my breath, then perhaps I'm also, doing well. You got to sometimes hit the pause button. You actually have to be able to take an honest representation and a look at what we're doing, and only then can you determine, hey, I'm actually do what it is I'm already doing and maybe do a little bit better.
My gosh, there's a lot to unpack there, Michael. But it's so great. So it's the little anecdotal story. Good friend of mine, facial plastic surgeon. You actually just described where his practice was about 7 years ago. He was just busy. He was doing procedures. He was just working. He thought that, hey, we're doing great. And his office manager comes in and says, Doc, I think we need to file for bankruptcy. And he's like,
oh wow,
what are you talking about, right? He's like, we're busy.
Right.
We're seeing patients. We're in the black. And she's like, no, we actually have this massive AR and we haven't collected, and it had ballooned, and he was just busy doing his stuff. And as he dug in and got some help, was able to quickly turn it around. But one of the things you mentioned right there too was understand where the profit centers were, right? You think, hey, I'm busy, but is what you're doing busy actually bringing in money, or is it? And so being able to understand, hey, what's this really equaling? Does the input equal or exceed the output, right? Where's that come in? And which is important. So let me ask you this, thinking about this, because I don't think a lot of the doctors are going to disagree with you, or the practice owners. We have not just doctors and dentists, but we have a lot of med spa owners who, nurse practitioners, others who are here. And yes, they are focused on what they're doing, and their plate is full. From a financial perspective, how much do they really need to know? How complicated is it for them to really know this side of things and manage it properly? What are they looking at? What does it take?
So I think a lot of practice owners, maybe they overcomplicate it for themselves. They're going to try and pull different reports. They're going to try and make sense out of a merchant statement. They're going to try and be able to reconcile deposits and bank records, and they're going to try and maybe just get a full, picture with graphs and spreadsheets. I think it's paralysis by analysis, but paralysis by analysis. So looking at too much data, and it's almost overwhelming for them. Really, I think the simplest thing that a business owner can do is to take your expenses, take all the fees that you're being charged, and we're talking specifically now when it comes to actually getting paid. What is my bank charging me? What am I getting charged monthly from my practice management software? What is my merchant account charging me? How much does it cost me when money is coming in? And then divide that amount by the money that you actually came in. And you're going to get a percentage. You're going to get an effective rate. And really, that's the first place that I start. I'm going to look at what the business is doing as far as money coming in. I'm going to look at the expenses that they're utilizing in order to get that revenue to come in. And from that point, we're then able to kind of go through what I call the patient car wash. When the patient comes in, how do they present their information? How do they present their payment method? And at what point is the practice actually collecting? How many asks? How many times is a statement being sent out? Is a text message being sent out? Is an email being sent out? Once we understand all the effort that goes in, we've now simplified the entire cycle from beginning to end. And we don't need to have all that data that's going to come in, which will maybe confuse us. And we're able just to kind of look very specifically at, this is my effective rate as far as what is it costing me to get paid for my patients.
Very, very good. So sometimes you get, like you said, you get really caught up in the weeds. And so really breaking it down into those areas. And then I think another thing you mentioned earlier was also understanding, what are your accounts receivable? And how how can they set up some automations and help reduce that account receivable balance within their practices?
So automation, I think, is one of those tools that are, one of those buzzwords actually, which I think is getting thrown around a lot today. A lot of practice management software, a lot of EMR, they're going to try and sell themselves on convenience. We're going to connect ourselves to your calendar. We're going to, manage your appointment reminders. We're going to manage these different types of notifications. Certainly, those things are helpful. I think to a certain extent, what we want to do as far as being able to manage the EAR that's coming in is through every communication that goes out, whether it's a statement, whether it's a text message reminder, whether it's some sort of a notification, we make it easy for the patient to be able to make a payment if in fact there's a balance. I'm amazed, looking at, different websites, none that belong to MyAdvice, of course, but websites where there isn't an easy way for a patient to be able to make a payment. They received a statement, or maybe they received some sort of a notification as far as how much is owed, maybe from a prior visit, or maybe they need to make some sort of a payment, ahead of time, and they have to pick up the phone and they have to call the office and now read their credit card number over the phone to do that. That's just wasted time. And that's not using automation, the best way. Put a QR code, either in the office, put something on a statement. These are tools which are there and they're secure with the right payment processing partner, so that this way the staff has already maybe done half, if not 3/4 of the work as far as accepting the payments before the patient even comes through the door.
Oh my gosh. It's so true, right? We throw around these buzzwords a lot, but are we actually able to push the easy button, right? The old commercials on the easy button like that Staples had.
Right, that was easy. You need that button. Exactly.
Yeah, an example of this was, if I think about like my dentist, he's got good software. I get done. I either while I'm at the chair, here's my card, I give it to him, and we're done. And or he'll send me a text with, here's the link, and I pay it. My kid's dentist, I get a paper statement mailed to me, and then they're like, hey, you can send us a check or call us and we'll send you a link to make a payment. And I'm like, so someone had to stuff that envelope, put a stamp on it, send it out to me, and now I want to make an easy payment. I don't want to talk to anybody, but now I actually have to call and talk to someone in your office, and then you're going to send me a text link with a payment. I'm like, there's got to be an easier way, right? And I know there are, but I'm like, I want to tell my dentist, who I see at the gym all the time too. I'm like, dude, come on, make it easy, make my life easy, make your life easy, But
and what you're describing, it's a very interesting phenomenon in that I don't think that you or anyone else for that matter has a service done for them, whether they go to the doctor or maybe they go to get their car, like their oil changed. We anticipate having to pay for something when someone does something for us. It shouldn't be extra work for us to now do what we already anticipate doing from the first place. No one's looking to do anything for free for somebody. So the fact that you're getting a statement in the mail and you now have to call somebody in order to get the link to come back, it's almost as if you're now having to work to now help your client, your provider, get paid. There's definitely an easier way. It shouldn't be this hard.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that. And I think that and we'll talk, a bit later, but I think that that's one of the things where if anyone listening today is like, how do I make my life easier? I think that warrants a conversation with you later, Michael. And we're here today to talk about good information, but we'll certainly give them an opportunity if they would like to, to speak to you at the end. We'll provide that information and let them see that, which will be very, very helpful.
Fantastic.
So I appreciate that. One of the things that you and I talked about before was sometimes they've got multiple systems running. So how do they overcome some of those challenges within the office to make sure that, boy, I've got to do something here, maybe I got QuickBooks running, I got to do this thing. How do you get these systems really working well together, some of these legacy things, to make it easier?
I love the fact that you brought up QuickBooks, only because we've been doing a lot of work recently, I'd say over the last maybe 4 months or so, in particular with QuickBooks Online users, showing them how within their QBO interface, they can accept payments, they can do it cheaper, they can do it more efficiently, and it doesn't necessarily have to be as clunky as the legacy interface looks like. I think the first thing that people need to understand is there is never a box that you're trapped into with regard to payment processing. In 2023, there's multiple ways to keep your legacy software. If you need to use a specific practice management software, or if you need to use this particular appointment setting software, in today's day and age, there's always a way to be able to automatically post those transactions in, and we work with a variety of different practice management softwares and EMRs and accounting softwares, so that that lift is not so hard. But to do it, there has to be this sense of, well, this is the way that we've always done it, and this is the way we're going to have to continue to do it. You have to get out of that mindset. You have to be open to the fact that, hey, we can change, and it won't be the end of the world if now maybe we need to take a couple hours or maybe a day or so just to learn a new system. So any practice owner which maybe has these preconceived notions of, this is just too complicated, we're too busy, it's certainly worth a conversation. There's no cost for ERJ to come in and just look at what you're doing, and we'll walk you through the connection. We'll show you how easy it is to keep what you have that's working and be able to adjust or modify maybe what isn't working.
That's awesome. And Michael, we're moving into kind of maybe the next phase, which is awesome. We've talked a lot about some of the challenges that these practices face, right? And these small business owners is really who they are. So we're starting to talk about some of these suggestions on how to make it easier. And you talked about really kind of being open to change and which is really, really important. So how can they really kind of work smarter, not harder, and really kind of make some of these options more digital, right? With everything they're doing, how do they make that happen?
Well, I think first they have to take advantage of the technology that's already in front of them. I alluded to the fact before that a lot of practice owners today, they don't use their website to the fullest. They use it more as almost like a poster. These are all the things that we can do, but they don't make it interactive. They don't allow for the transactional, process to happen in an easy way. You shouldn't have to go fishing for a link to be able to make a payment. I think throughout COVID, we also saw a number of practices that for the first text messaging. That's where your clients are today. That's where your patients are. Email certainly works, but if you have an easy way to be able to connect to text messaging, you're going to get a lot more opens. You're going to get a lot quicker responses. And then it's a matter of, well, what do you do with that data when it comes in? Is it communicating in a way with your CRM, with your accounting, with your practice management software? Is that last step, is that a manual process, or is it automated? Are you able to connect all the dots? So I think to a certain extent, the technology is there. We don't necessarily have to do anything really beyond, I think what we've done in the past. But at this point, it's just more so of taking advantage of what's there, showing kind of that roadmap. How do we actually connect everything together? And I think really the last piece of it with regard to, just embracing technology, don't be afraid to maybe look at a different industry and get a sense of, well, how are they accepting payment? And maybe what are they doing? Does it make sense for us? A lot of medical practices have financing programs, which are these legacy financing programs that charge the practice an arm and a leg in order to prolong treatment. Or perhaps maybe the practice is on, they're almost on the hook. They have liability if in fact the patient doesn't pay. There are multiple other ways for a practice to be able to extend treatment, whether it's using what is very commonly being thrown out as buy now, pay later type services. The medical industry, I think, is slow to adopt some of these practices, but it's certainly becoming more and more commonplace. Or to be able to offer some other creative financing type programs. And don't just offer one, have multiple options available for your patients so that this way, perhaps when they don't get approved for the first one, you don't want to turn away a patient, especially if it's a treatment that you know that they need. You know, you shouldn't have to make this a sales type approach. Give them multiple options and multiple ways to be able to get the treatment that they need.
I love it. And I think that's really, really smart. Michael, we've got a few questions. Let me throw a few questions out to you.
Sure.
One of the first questions is, can I charge 3% to cover my credit card fees? So, you know, whatever percentage.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually a very relevant question, primarily because Visa over the weekend, actually, April 15th, they changed the legal surcharge amount from used to be up to 4% to 3%. And a lot of it was as a result of consumer activist groups responding. But the answer is yes. If you take the proper steps, if you're making sure that the credit card fee itself is not exceeding 3%, and of course you're in a state, and there are only a few states at this point now that ban surcharging altogether. Yes, you can pass on, or you can surcharge that fee for 3%, on credit card transactions only. Now, why I specifically said credit card transactions is it's illegal. You're not able to do that if it's a debit card. So it's very important for a practice to understand or maybe be aware that however they're accepting payment, the payment method, the entry point needs to be able to identify, is this a credit card? Is this a debit card? Because if you're going to charge that 3% on a debit card, you're opening yourself up for unnecessary scrutiny and or potential fines by the card brands.
That's really good information.
Great question.
Another question is, my practice management slash EMR software uses a current payment processor that they recommend is sort of integrated. Is it easy to switch, or do I have to use their system, their processor?
So your EMR and the practice management system, they're always going to have a recommendation as far as who they've already tested and who it works with. The common practice, or let's say the most popular practices, practice management software at this point, they've allowed their platform to have manual transactions being made within them. And because of that, we have robotics type technology. We have the wherewithal to be able to mimic or use that same flow of information to be able to process a transaction. Will it be the recommended way based off of the practice management software? It won't be the recommended way, but it's going to achieve the same result. And our process, we're going to walk with you. We're going to have your system in place, in a usable method, so that it's not this huge lift. I certainly won't want to generalize as far as why some practice management software have preferred vendors. I think certainly there might be some financial considerations as far as why they're looking to be able to have some vendors versus others. But typically what I've found is that when you have a preferred vendor that's specific to a particular software, the overall effective rate, the cost, tends to be a little bit higher than maybe it needs to be. And because of that, you want to have that flexibility of, well, we need to use this practice management system, or we want to use this EMR, but if there's another way for us to put some more money back into our pocket and we can keep what we like, why would we pay more? And why would we give more to the credit card companies or to the bank?
I think that's a great question. Is how do you, really maximize that and from a money perspective, right? Which is so important. So, no, I love it. Another question for you is, another question is, this is a good one. And something I've felt before is, and something that came up in our discussions, right? What are the challenges with switching from my current processor? I've got things in place. I think I've got good, decent stuff, but let's say that, yeah, the numbers look good. I'm actually going to save a lot of money. My life's going to get easier. But is there a pain point, and what are some of those? What are those things I should be aware of if I decide to switch?
So I found a lot of practices or a lot of business owners, when they sign up initially for a merchant services agreement. What they might not even realize this, but they've bound themselves within some sort of a contract. In some cases, maybe they've leased the equipment that they're using, or there's an early termination penalty, or perhaps there's some sort of other hook that they might be unaware of, and if they move away, they now all of a sudden would have to incur. Part of our process is, before we're going to encourage any transitioning or any moving away, we're going to do an investigative dive on the existing accounts, and we'll do a side-by-side analysis of, we'll look at how much we're able to potentially save you. At what point would you actually start to realize these savings? And show in some cases how the savings, where, again, we're in the middle of April right now, if I could save you a certain amount and you only started realizing that in June, well, that's found money that's in your pocket, and maybe we just waited an extra 30 days or so. But that sometimes ends up being a mental hurdle that some business owners can't get past. They're in a contract, or they're in an agreement, and they don't want to move away from that. Sometimes if you look maybe a little bit down the road and recognize the long-term value of moving away from a legacy system or a legacy processor, ultimately that just puts more money into your pocket. And I think the other piece, which I think people need to sometimes have to, kind of grapple with, you have to have the courage to make some change. You have to be willing to accept the fact that, hey, you know what, maybe what I think I know might not actually be the truth. And when you get to that point, then you now see, oh, look at the whole world in front of me, all the things that I could potentially do. But you have to take that first step and be willing to move past, this is the way that we've always done it.
Yeah, that's good. I remember, Michael, being with a group early on, and I was almost loyal to them because a friend of mine worked there, right, and made an introduction, and eventually I was like, I'm not sure this is the right thing, and so finally just had to kind of, well, friendship aside, I'm running a business, and I need to make sure I'm doing the right things for my business. So, I get it. Another question. This is actually really interesting because I hear, I'm seeing more and more of this, right? Particularly with shopping carts. People are really concerned, and they care about this additional revenue stream. This one just says, I have a shopping cart connected with Stripe. How much would switching potentially save me?
So Stripe has their pricing put on their website. I certainly don't want to give unnecessary advertising to my competition, but their rates are the same for the most part for any business owner. So I think when it comes to how much could they save, it's going to depend on their processing volume. As far as connecting to a gateway, as far as connecting to a shopping cart, nowadays, most of these shopping carts, the popular shopping carts, will allow you to connect a different gateway, which is one of the things that we specialize in. We work with multiple gateways, front end and back end, platforms. And it's just a matter of finding the right fit to minimize any potential disruption. Because these transactions are happening in the background, all we're really doing is we're just diverting the funds. We're kind of just changing the rails, so to speak, through a different door, but it ultimately ends up going back into the business owner's bank account. How difficult is it? It's not that difficult at all. It's a matter of just plugging in the right pieces. What's the savings potential? If you think about potentially 3.5% versus 2.5%, or perhaps even less, if there's some surcharging or some sharing of the fees with the end user, the savings could be significant, actually.
Yeah, that's really important. You think about, you start to get to think, well, if I'm bringing in $100,000 a month, just using sort of a round number, well, you start to talk about 2.5% of that versus 3.5. That percentage point is actually a lot of money every single month. And what could be done with that extra 1% to help grow the business, go back to the owner's pocket, or for expansion, right? There's a lot of things that can be done, but how do you recapture that?
They can put it towards their marketing budget.
Hey, I like that shameless plug. I like where you're going with that. Why not? Let's build more the top of the funnel. I'm with you. So no, that's awesome. Thank you. One more question today, because this has been really, really helpful. I'm worried about the bank holding my cash in reserve if I switch over. And I can relate to that. That happened to me years ago when I was had a brand new business. I just started. I, really have no assets. I'm just, getting going. I don't have credit history with them, and they decided to freeze a good chunk of my bank assets, of my cash, just to secure everything until they had about 90 days worth of history of processing payments,
Right.
and then it was open again. But boy, that could really impact somebody. So talk about that a little bit.
So I empathize with any business owner that's unfortunately had to go through this experience. I think what happens a lot of the time is that when a payment processing vendor is chosen, and this vendor does a quick and easy sign up, right? You give me like, one or two pieces of information, your name and maybe your bank account. They're not fully understanding the type of business that you are. They're not fully understanding what the average transaction will be. They're not really setting risk parameters in place. They're guessing. And because they're guessing, they're on the hook if ultimately there's some sort of fraud or if they guess incorrectly. And how do they mitigate their risk? Well, they hold you or they hold the business owner hostage. They keep those funds in reserve. They don't allow you access to the deposits, to the money that you so desperately need once you've opened your door, once you've started to see patients. So well, on the one hand, you could say that some of these aggregators and some of these easy, quick sign-up solutions serve a purpose. You certainly kind of hear some of the horror stories with that because it just makes running your business even harder. If we're going to talk about why is it so difficult to get paid from your patients, and we've actually gotten to the point where now you're getting paid, why would we add an added layer of complexity, an added layer of a delay from your financial institution because the due diligence maybe wasn't done as thoroughly as it could have been from the get-go. So it's one of the reasons why when I work with new business owners and I explain to them, we're going to need to have, some information about you. We're going to ask you for some, for a bank statement potentially, or maybe we'll ask you for a merchant statement. We're creating a profile so that we're not going to hold your money, so that you can do what you do best, and that's see your patients, help, the various different, clients that come through your door. And then when you swipe and when you dip, you tap, you process the payment online, you don't have to think about it. It happens like clockwork, that the funds are going to show up into your bank account.
That's awesome. Well, that's great. Thank you for that reassuring statement and adding some confidence to our listeners today and our participants. So really, really appreciate that. Michael, kind of wrapping up today. You have an offer for our attendees. Go ahead and talk about what you've got for them.
So anyone who's interested in just kind of going through that, that business X-ray, right? That checkup for their practice. We'll do a quick analysis, quick and thorough actually. We'll get a quick turnaround as far as what they're paying now. We'll set up a time just to understand what's working, what isn't working. There's no obligation to proceed, no cost for the analysis. And then based off of what we come up with, we have free terminal placements. We can give a free machine for any practice that comes through the MyAdvice platform, or if maybe they have an existing hosted payment page, or if they have some sort of a button on their website, they're looking to maybe enhance it, we'll do that whole process for them for free. No contract, no upfront investment from any business owner, and we'll give them a 60-day trial period. Try us out, see how things are working. Things aren't working the way that you anticipate. No termination fee, no nothing, no harsh words or anything like that, and we're able to kind of go from there. But yeah, try it out and see if it makes more sense after 60 days.
Very, very generous. And Michael, how will they reach you? So
the easiest way to reach out to us is you can go to our website, www.erjsolutions.com, and there's a contact us button on the bottom. Just type in MyAdvice webinar, and we'll reach back out with you, within 24 hours. Or we could, put out, my email, Michael@ERJ Solutions, to mention that you saw the webinar. You like the picture in the background, behind Chad, because it's a lot better than my picture over here. You like the bridge over there. And then we'll be sure to reach back out to you, quickly and schedule a time to talk. Nope, can't hear you now.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Michael, it's been a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Thank you. And it's been a pleasure to have you here as our guest today. And we appreciate all of our guests being here, and we wish you all the best. I hope you'll take advantage of that offer from Michael. Do the analysis. Hey, what does it hurt, right? Run and see, is there a way you can save more money and make your life easier? That's a pretty painless way to do that. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul. But we're here to help grow your business. That's what we like to do. So as I continue to bring great guests like Michael to you, it's all about helping you as a small business owner be as efficient and effective as you can and grow your business the right way. So Michael, thank you. Always a pleasure to visit with you. We thank you very much, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, Chad.
Bye-bye.